and gentlemen, and welcome to an episode of Pigskin Thursday. So happy to have you with us today from our crewforlife.com platform. We're also on YouTube Live, so I want to thank everybody very, very much for joining us today. It's great to have you. We got a lot to talk about, lots and lots and lots to talk about today. Today we are going to have special guest in about 20 minutes, Aaron Freeman, who is the host of Locked on Falcons podcast, is going to be joining me. We're going to be breaking down the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game this upcoming Sunday. So you definitely want to be here for that. And then we got a lot of different topics, a lot of different things we're going to talk about. We're also going to talk about in a couple of minutes. We're going to get into this WEEI reporter out of New England who has given Tom Brady a little bit of crap because of something he said. And I got a little message back that I would like to give him. But we're going to wait a few minutes, make sure we have all our different affiliates on. I know we're on YouTube. I know we're on crewforlife.com. I know we're going to be on Frankly Speaking Sports tonight. So lots and lots and lots of different networks that we will be on. We're going to talk about the 8-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Atlanta Falcons, who are 4-9. We got just some breaking news about an hour ago. I believe it came down from Rick Stroud, who works, is associated with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I want to go ahead and report it right now for all of you Buccaneer fans that are listening. Zach Triner, the long snapper, Ryan Suckup, the kicker, and Bradley Pinion, the punter, were all on the COVID list and have now been taken off the COVID list. And all three of them will be playing versus the Atlanta Falcons this upcoming Sunday. One of the people that actually tested, it was a false positive. The two were under quarantine because they were too close. So once again, Zach Triner, Ryan Suckup, and Bradley Pinion will all be playing for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as we're just waiting here to make sure all of our platforms are getting on. I know at this time we usually have a bunch of different platforms on. And before we get knee-deep into this show, we want to go ahead and make sure that everybody is on. So hopefully we can go ahead and do that. Now, for those of you folks that, obviously a decent game last week versus Minnesota. Usually on a Pigskin Thursday, I don't like to go so much over what has happened previously as we do going forward and what we expect from the Atlanta Falcons and what we also expect from your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For those of you that are on lots of different networks, if you can please go ahead and do me a favor and share this to your timeline. I know you have friends that are Buccaneer fans. Maybe you have friends that are Atlanta Falcons fans. But, this is one of the things that if you could do it to help us out and to promote ourselves just by sharing it to your timeline, I would surely appreciate it. We do have a comment section. Your name should come up tonight since we are shooting from the crewforlife.com studios. So it should come up if you leave a message. But before we get into this week's game and the controversial comments that was made out of this WEEI reporter out of New England that I'm going to get into, let's go ahead, watch a 2-minute clips for those of you that it's been too long Sunday on some of the highlights from last week's game versus the Minnesota Vikings. Let's go ahead and do.
All right, let's talk about Tampa Bay. So much talk about Bruce Arians, head coach, and Tom Brady. But how about the defense? It has been knocked around here.
They've played some really good football teams, and they face another top 10 offense here this afternoon.
Y'all know what time it is, bro. This is playoff football right here. Let's go, bro. We all we got. Y'all know we only gonna go as far as we take it. Let's go out here and ball out.
They're down in 4. Pressure, and Cousins is going to go down. Shaq Barrett.
Here they are now, and they are really good down in this area of the field scoring touchdowns.
Cook is the main reason why he is in for the touchdown. First snap in Vikings territory for Tampa Bay. Brady all day downfield. Touchdown, Scotty Miller. So it brings up first and goal at the 1. Jones with the lead for the touchdown, Tampa Bay. Here's a pass caught for the touchdown, Gronkowski. Fifth of the year for Gronk. Blitz, and the ball's out. Cousins has to spin out, and he cannot get away. Down goes Cousins again. Just a 4-man rush. Ball is out. Picked up by JPP. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will take over.
This was
Yeah, believe me, did they ever take over in this game? What a great, great job by the Buccaneers defense in that second half of that game. And just a great, great game. You know, I thought that the best play they had, the complete drive that they had to start that second half was probably the most well-balanced drive that this team has had the entire season, using the run, using the pass effectively, and scoring on Rob Gronkowski's 2-yard pass from Tom Brady. And just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. Now, for those of you just joining us, we got some late breaking news out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers headquarters probably about an hour ago. Most of you probably have heard it already. If not, we here on Frankly Speaking Sports want to make sure we bring it to you that this Sunday, Zach Triner, the long snapper, Ryan Suckup, the kicker, and Bradley Pinion, the punter, will all be playing for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are now off the COVID watch list. It was a false positive, and the 2 other guys were people who are in the vicinity of these guys that were too close to them. They've been relieved of the COVID as well. So for all of you, our special teams will be intact. They will be ready to go against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. Now, before we break down this game, I want to bring up a topic that is really, really, really bothering me and really pissed me off today. And I know a lot of the Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans will be pissed off as well. But before I do that, if I can ask you all, I see many, many people from different platforms on tonight. Pigskin Thursday has been a hit show, and we want to continue to make it a hit show. Could you please do me one favor? Take 1 moment. That's all it'll take. Share this to your timelines so all your friends will have the opportunity to watch this show like you're getting the opportunity right now. I would definitely appreciate it. CrewLife.com will appreciate it, as well as we, as always, are sponsored by CrewForLife.com. If you're not a member of CrewForLife.com, it's about time you become one. Go to their website, join it. You'll see all the different, Frankly Speaking Sports, Bullseye shows, and all the Crew Life shows with my good buddy, Coach Marvin Bell as well. So make sure you go ahead and join CrewForLife.com. But this reporter out of New England, and I want everybody to listen closely, because this is something I've been waiting about, and I've been waiting to boil over before I really blow up. And I'm not going to necessarily blow up tonight, but it's something that's been bothering me. And it's when you get a reporter from WEEI named, I believe his name is Ken Laird, okay? And he's going off about how Tom Brady made a comment about how much he loves it here in Tampa Bay because he doesn't have to deal with those cold winters anymore up in New England. Who wouldn't enjoy it? And this goes back to some of the media, as usual, taking things out of context and continually putting a spin on stories that they like to see them spinned off on so they can make a name for themselves. And it's just wrong. It's ludicrous. It's just ridiculous how this Ken Laird went ahead and did this. I remember when Chris Collinsworth came out a couple weeks ago, made comments about women in Pittsburgh knowing a lot about football. And even though I could see how some people might have thought some things, it was definitely taken out of context. But no man or woman in the media had enough gonads to come out and say, look, that was taken out of context. I was quiet then. I was quiet during the Drew Brees things. When Drew Brees made these comments, just some real bad timing by Drew Brees. Everybody knows it was bad timing. It came out as insensitive, but it had to take someone like Charles Barkley to come out and say, look, you guys are taking this out of context. This is not what Drew Brees means. Then, you have things like the logos in sports. Cleveland Indians, after 100 and something years, have to change their name. The Braves might have to change their name. Mississippi State might have to do this, and so on and so on. And we had it right here in Tampa Bay years back when, people came out in Tampa Bay and said, because of a Devil Ray, which is a name of an animal, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays had to change their name to the Tampa Bay Rays because the word devil was in the Rays. And, these are the same people that's saying that the Devil Rays had to take the name devil out of their name, but those are the same people on Easter Sunday who's going to church and then going home and eating deviled eggs. But that's okay because, what is it? It's okay because deviled eggs is different than Devil Ray. It's ridiculous and the spun off. And this is what's going on with the WEEI guy who's saying that Tom Brady is bad-mouthing New England. After 20 years of playing in New England, he's going off and saying it's not only disappointing, the WEEI reporter Ken Laird is saying, but it's wrong, and he should offer an apology for saying that he likes the weather so much better in Tampa Bay than he does in New England. Who wouldn't like the weather? There's very few people in my life that I have met, and I lived in New England for 5 years. I lived over Ken Laird. I lived the next town over from Foxborough in Sharon, Massachusetts for 5 years. And you know what? I don't want to go back to that weather either. Would I love to go back? I love people up there. I have friends up there. It doesn't mean I have any less love for them. But at the same time, when you have beautiful sunshine, beautiful beaches, beautiful equipment like a boat and jet skis, why would you want to go to New England in the winter when you can go ahead and use those things and live in luxury in the winter months? What Tom said was nothing wrong, but it takes somebody like you that thinks you are too high almighty. And after Tom giving you 20 of the best years in New England's history in football, you could come out and say something so stupid and so bad. Now, I don't know Ken Laird, so I'm not going to sit here and beat up on the guy's character when I don't know a guy, and I wouldn't do that. I don't think it's professional. But I don't think it's professional either for him to come out and completely criticize Tom Brady so he can make a name for himself on WEEI. You would think a guy like him that has 15 years experience knows better than to pull some type of crap like that up in New England. And I'm very, very frustrated as a fan because it is wrong, and this crap has to stop. Tom did not do nothing wrong. I am coming to Tom's defense, not that he needs me, because if you look at the media people, the other media people who are right will come to his defense as well. But for them to say this, 20 years, 6 Super Bowls, played with the best coach possibly in the NFL, him to being the best quarterback. How could you take a guy that has given you everything, and because he says he enjoys the weather so much more, try to put a spin on it and saying he is knocking the fans, he is being derogatory towards the people that live in New England, and he means much more than just the weather. That's not Tom Brady talking, Ken. That is you talking, and that is incorrect. That is wrong. And you know what? You should be ashamed of yourself. If anybody here needs to give an apology, Ken Laird of WEEI Radio, it is definitely you, because for you to call out is probably one of the most unprofessional things I've seen among media people in a long time. And if you're man enough, which I doubt you are, because if you were man enough, you would have never called out Tom Brady for something so silly and something so stupid as the comments that you're trying to put a spin-off on. But if you're professional enough, you should be the one that comes out and offers Tom Brady an apology. But I wouldn't be looking for that anytime soon. So that's my spin on that. Hope I didn't bore you guys too much with that, but that's how I feel about that situation. And the media has to stop putting these spins on different situations like this and continue to make people look bad so they can gain from it. I just hate people who try to make other people look bad so that they can go ahead and look good. That's just not my style. And, maybe I'm wrong for this, Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm supposed to be like that. But I've never been like that. I've never been brought up that way. And I'm never going to be like that. So I'm sorry. This is the guy I am, and this is the guy I'm going to continue to be. But we got a football game to talk about. The Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons coming up this Sunday. The Bucs are looking to solidify a playoff spot. They actually right now hold the number 6 playoff seed. The good news is if you look at statistics and you're one of those type individuals, I want to welcome Eric and Tommy, definitely loyal listeners to our show today. Thank you so very much for joining us tonight, as we have many other people. But, when you look at this team, Tom Brady is 6-0, including that amazing Super Bowl win versus the Atlanta Falcons. We just told you that our special teams will be playing, so no worry there about the COVID scare. But this is a game where I have not heard officially, but it looks like, and I say look like, so remember, I didn't say it's official, that Ronald Jones will be out. So you will see Leonard Fournette getting a lot of the touches. But the one guy that I will tell you to look out for this weekend when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think he's going to play a major role in this game, not just running the ball, but also catching the ball out of the backfield, could be Shady McCoy. LaShawn McCoy came in, gave us a spark. The last thing you want to do is only have Leonard Fournette come in running situations, because basically what you're doing is you're telling the defense every time Leonard Fournette comes in the game, then he's going to run the ball, and when McCoy's in, they're going to pass it. So we all know Fournette has had his issues this year catching the ball out of the backfield, and hopefully it's something they work with. But I think they're going to need a little bit of balance running. But, although Fournette will get the brunt of it, don't be surprised if you see McCoy get some touches early. And if he is, running the ball well, you never know. They may go with the hot hand, and they should go with the hot hand at that time. So look out for Fournette, but look out for Shady McCoy as well. Now, this is going to be a battle about how well the Falcons' defensive line is going to match up against our offensive line. And for those of you that have been following the Buccaneers all year long, which I know is most of you, what a great, great job. You haven't heard much about the offensive line over the last couple of weeks, which some people will say that's a good thing because that means they're not doing nothing wrong. And believe me, they're not doing nothing wrong. Every single person on that offensive line, from Donovan Smith to Tristan Wirfs to Ali Marpet to Alex Kappa to Ryan Jensen, what an incredible job. I don't think Brady got hit in that last game until somewhere it was real late in the fourth quarter. So, great job. And this is not a terrific defensive rush by the Atlanta Falcons. Dante Fowler this year is nowhere. They gave him this huge contract for Atlanta, and he's nowhere to be found this year. They do have Grady Jarrett. They have Means. They have Marina. But, this is an defensive front that we should not have any issues handling come this Sunday. We should just be able – if Brady gets hit this Sunday, it will be a surprise to me because our offensive line, Ian Beckles of the WDAE, our favorite radio sports station here in Tampa Bay, already says you win it in the trenches. We are better on both sides of this football in the trenches. Our offensive line and our defensive line is so much better. And, Atlanta is known to have, similar to how we were, they're known to have a great Russian defense, but they are not very, very good on the corners and against the pass. And Tom Brady, with the weapons that he has, if there's ever going to be a game this year where he gets to evenly distribute the ball to so many people, folks, you are going to see it this weekend. You'll see Brown, you'll see Godwin, you'll see Evans, you'll see Miller and whoever else, Gronkowski and Brady. This is a team that you're going to be able – I would not be surprised if Brady walks away with 400 yards passing in this game with 3 or 4 touchdowns at least. We have the ability to do that against this team. Now, Matt Ryan, it's amazing. Matt Ryan still picks up stats, okay, I'm just looking at something right here. Stay with me, folks, as I handle something right here. So this gentleman can go ahead and stay with me so he can come on today. So stay with me if you don't mind as I really quickly do this. All right, there we go. That's done. So, but Matt Ryan, no matter what he does, they keep saying he's deteriorating in Atlanta. But when you look at Matt Ryan's stats, he did throw 3 interceptions last week. He's thrown 8 interceptions in his last 6 games. So a lot of questions around Matt Ryan. But Matt Ryan is still throwing for 3,400 yards this year, or actually 3,600 yards this year. And I have his stats written down somewhere here. Let me see if I can. Yeah, there he is. 317 for 498 yards. He has a 64% pass completion, 3,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. The problem is he's been sacked 33 times this year. 33 times that he's been sacked this year. So it's just amazing what he's enduring this year. But we'll get talking to Aaron Freeman in about 5 minutes, and we'll see what we can come up with and get some information there. The only part that worries me about this game, as it has all year, is the way our defense starts out games. We start out very slow, especially with our cornerbacks. Dean, has been out, but the Carlton Davises, the Murphy Buntings. We have to score quickly and often here. And the other thing we have to do, we mentioned this on Monday's show, and I know it's not Bruce Arians' type of game, he says, which I disagree with, but he has to manage the clock better. He has to have long, sustained drives, and even Tom Brady mentioned it in his press conference. We have to keep our defense off the field some so they can get that blow. They can get that rest. You can't have, 30%, 40% third down efficiency and expect your defense to be fresh every time they come onto the field. You got to sustain a couple of drives, get some first downs while you're on drives, score some points, and your defense will be fresh. And And that's what we got to do. I mean, look at our defense. The last 2 weeks, Barrett and Pierre-Paul in the last 2 games have combined 5 sacks. Our front seven is doing an unbelievable job on pass rush. And the other key that I mentioned Monday is it's not the pass rush. It's the timing of the pass rush. How quick you can get to the quarterback. You got to give that quarterback no time at all to throw the ball. Then you won't have to worry about them completing passes. And in the second half of that game, they just destroyed Kirk Cousins, and you saw what happened. And the other guy for Atlanta that you got to watch out for is this Calvin Ridley guy who's emerging lately with Julio Jones being out. He's a real dangerous player as well. So we'll have to see what happens there as we are moments away from having Aaron Freeman on with us. I believe we are about 1 minute away. But as we introduce this guy, this is a guy that we have on that knows about Atlanta Falcon football. When you want to know about Atlanta Falcon football, this is definitely the guy you need to talk to. And I'm real happy, honored, and thrilled to be able to have with us this evening in the Frankly Speaking Sports Studios. Let's welcome in Aaron Freeman, the host of Locked On Falcons Podcast. How you doing tonight, Aaron?
Doing great. Glad to be talking football with you.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're there, my friend. Thank you for coming on. I know it's been short notice to holidays, but we got a football game to talk about coming up on this Sunday. And the one thing about this game, Aaron, as you know, it doesn't matter what either of these teams' records are. When these two teams end up playing each other, something always seems to happen in these games.
Yeah, absolutely. You go back to that Week 17 game last year where, it was a pretty dominant first half from the Bucs. Then the Falcons came back and then were able to put it in overtime. And then you had a pick six from Jameis Winston on the first play, picked off by Deion Jones to end the game. And so, these games, as you say, tend to go pretty back and forth. They tend to be up and down. If the Bucs are having a down year and the Falcons are up, it's going to be a close game. If the Bucs are having a big year and the Falcons are down, it's probably going to be a close game. So I expect the same on Sunday.
Now, Aaron, a lot of, situations going on there in Atlanta with obviously no GM right now. They have an interim head coach. If you're a player on these Atlanta Falcons, you have 3 games left. You barely have a chance to make the playoffs. I mean, what is Raheem Morris telling these guys they're playing for the rest of the year?
Well, technically they were actually eliminated from the playoffs last week when they lost to the Chargers. So the playoffs are out of the picture right now. Really, it's just pride. It's maybe throwing a wrench into this Bucs season and maybe messing up their seeding for the playoffs. It's to go up against, they got the Bucs twice. They got the Chiefs, sandwich in between next week. So it's 2 of the better teams in the NFL. And they can basically say to themselves, like, we can play with the best. We're capable of more. I don't know if that's going to help Raheem Morris's chances of sticking in Atlanta, but it certainly is a great resume builder for him, for any teams that are looking for head coaches after the season, any head coaches that are looking for a guy to take over as a defensive coordinator. If they can, slow down this Bucs offense this week and then the Chiefs offense next week. So it's one of those things where, like, there's not a whole lot to play for in terms of the wins and losses, but certainly for these players that are going to have more than likely a new head coach, a new general manager, these are going to be prime evaluation games for them. And, people are going to remember how guys played in the final 3 weeks of the season more so than they remember how they played in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Now, Aaron, I'm an outsider looking in. I don't follow the Falcons every day, but, I've always admired and respected Matt Ryan as a quarterback. He came out of Boston College. I used to follow Boston College. And it seems like, unless I'm reading it wrong, I know he's had some difficulties in his last 6 games, 8 interceptions, 3 interceptions last week. But it seems like no matter what this guy does, it always seems to be underappreciated. Here's a guy that is still throwing for 3,600 yards, 19 touchdown passes this year, and he has been sacked 33 times. Let's throw that in there as well. And it just seems like people are, when you look at some of the tabloids in the Atlanta area, they're ready to count him out and say he's done.
Yeah, it's been an interesting season on that front because you've seen Matt Ryan play really well this season. You've seen him play really poorly and arguably no worse than he did last week against the Chargers, where he threw 3 interceptions, and those were very bad plays by Matt Ryan himself, and there's really no one else to blame for that. And one of the things that I've talked about quite a bit in recent weeks on Locked On Falcons, the daily podcast I do about the Falcons, is that when you look at the numbers of Matt Ryan's performance with and without a healthy Julio Jones this season, it is stark. Like, his passer rating without Julio Jones is like 67. His passer rating with Julio Jones is like 102. And, that's basically going from like a top 5 quarterback to one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL just based off of the passer rating. And a lot of that has to do, not to do with Matt Ryan himself or Julio Jones himself. It's just kind of the structure of how the Falcons offense is under Dirk Cutter, which I know Bucs fans are very familiar with some of the flaws and issues with Dirk Cutter's offense. And so much of his offense is just kind of reliant and has been reliant here in Atlanta on sort of Julio Jones being great and Calvin Ridley being great. And there's not a whole lot that this offense can do when one or both of those guys are out of the lineup. And this year, because of the hamstring injury that's been nagging Julio since August, he's been in and out of the lineup throughout this season. So I think with Matt Ryan, he's played well this season. I think he still has several good years left in him. I don't know if he's going to be returning to the level that he was a couple of years ago when he was a league MVP. But I think he's still a good quarterback. I still think he's one of the 10 to 15 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I just think now that, given the Falcons are struggling as much as they are, that there's going to be a complete change on the coaching front. The first one in 5 years, they're going to be a complete change on the general manager front, because the guy that brought in Matt Ryan initially in 2008 was just fired, in Thomas Dimitroff, the Falcons general manager. You're going to have fresh eyes in the building really for the first time in 12 years. And so I think the concern is that a lot of people think, given Matt Ryan's high price tag, given his declining production, particularly over the last 2 years under Dirk Cutter, there's going to be some concerns whether or not a new general manager, a new head coach are going to come in and say, you know what, this is not worth it for us, for the Falcons to pay $30-40 million a year to get a, above average quarterback. And it would just maybe be easier for us to just move on and go young, particularly with this upcoming draft class where a lot of people are thinking there are going to be 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10. And the Falcons are certainly looking like they're going to have a top 10 pick unless they go on an improbable run here at the end of the season. So I think those are the main concerns driving that narrative. But if I was to make a bet, I would say Matt Ryan will be back next year, just with new management. But the leash is going to be shorter on Matt Ryan in the foreseeable future.
Now, you got the 8-5 Buccaneers coming into Atlanta. They're trying to solidify a playoff spot. I mean, the one thing I know about the Falcons, they've always had a decent rushing defense. Seems like a lot of their struggle comes on the side with the cornerback against the pass. And you got Tom Brady coming in with more weapons than an all-star team can have right now, with Antonio Brown, Godwin, Gronkowski, Evans. I mean, how does a team like the Falcons, who are, a little bit, I would call them an average defense on the corners, how do they go about defending this Buccaneers offense?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big challenge for the Falcons, particularly because their last couple of games, their young rookie cornerback, AJ Terrell, who's had a really good rookie season and certainly outperformed expectations that a lot of people had going into the draft and coming out of the draft when the Falcons made him the 16th overall pick. And a lot of people called that pick a reach. But, right now he's Pro Football Focus's highest graded rookie corner. He's outperforming guys that were taken above him and players at other positions that were taken above him. So he's had an excellent rookie season. But particularly these last 2 weeks, going up against the Saints with Michael Thomas and the Chargers with Keenan Allen, they wanted to see if he could sort of be a shadow matchup corner in those games, and he kind of struggled in doing that. So what you have is a good young corner that has a bright future ahead of him, but isn't quite ready to go toe-to-toe with the premier wide receivers like an Allen, like a Thomas, that you can throw Chris Godwin, a Mike Evans in that category. And, lo and behold, you got a guy like Antonio Brown, who's not the guy that he once was, but is still one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. And so you don't necessarily have – your best corner is not necessarily the type of guy that you can – reasonably expect, at least based off of the last 2 weeks, to go toe-to-toe with those guys and shut them down. And then you have big question marks at the other cornerback positions that the Falcons have, where you have your number 2 corner in Darqueze Dennard, who's dealing with a quad injury that he missed 6 games earlier this season with, and missed the end of the Chargers game. And the minute he came out of the game, the Chargers got a big play against his replacement and set up a game-winning field goal last week. And so if you don't have Dennard out there, it's going to be even a bigger challenge. And really, it's just kind of a situation where the Falcons are going to have to rely heavily on their front to sort of cover for the back end. And unfortunately, their front hasn't been that effective, particularly over the last month of the season, in terms of generating consistent pressure. And one of the things that the Falcons have relied heavily on to try to compensate for that is blitzing a lot more. And when Raheem Morris took over the job in week 6, and for that first month that he was sort of running things, it was very effective. Since the bye week, it hasn't been nearly as effective. And, then you throw in the hurdle of, do you really want to blitz Tom Brady? He's a 43-year-old quarterback that's pretty much seen every blitz that you can possibly throw at him, probably dozens of times at this point in time of his career. And, that may be playing into his hands to a certain extent. So it's a tough matchup for the Falcons right now, at least on paper. The hope is that, at least if you're a Falcon fan, not necessarily if you're a Bucs fan, but the hope is for the Falcons that, some guys can step up and play above what they've played at recently, including AJ Terrell, including some of those replacements for Darqueze Dennard, including some of those guys on the front line, including Dante Fowler, their big free agent signing that has really kind of been a no-show this season. And, now is the best time possible for him to show up against a guy like Donovan Smith, or, maybe take the rookie Tristan Wirfs to school, who's been, excellent this season. So I'm not necessarily expecting that, but they kind of need somebody to step up and really play above their status at this point in time if they're going to really have much of a chance to slow down this Bucs offense.
In a season where Julio Jones has been injured, how much if you want to take a good out of a bad, how much has the emergence of Calvin Ridley surprised you?
It hasn't been a huge surprise, because I think a lot of people went into the season expecting Ridley to be the breakout star. I remember talking to a lot of people that do fantasy stuff over the summer, and everybody was sort of pegging Calvin Ridley to be this year's Chris Godwin, as the guy that would sort of emerge as one of the top wide receivers in the league this season. And I think he's currently on pace to have something like 1,200 yards. He's maybe on pace to have double-digit touchdowns again, which he had, I think, his rookie season as well. So his production, his emergence isn't a huge surprise, but it's nice to have expectations and have someone live and then potentially exceed those expectations. Like, I expected Ridley to have a bigger year, but at the same time, I wasn't expecting him to have some of the dominant performances that he has had this year. And especially when you throw in the fact that he's had to play several games this season without having Julio Jones opposite him, who does the bulk of the work as the true number 1 to draw those double teams on every single snap, which gives Ridley a lot of one-on-ones that he is more than capable of taking advantage of. And I feel like there have been too many games this season due to Julio's absence where Ridley has been drawing those double teams and he's still found ways to produce. So he has definitely exceeded my expectations in that regard, but it's not necessarily a big surprise that he's having a pretty big year.
We talk about defenses, and the Bucs defense hasn't been by any means. They've had some big plays this year, but one of their weaknesses, as you know, was similar to what Atlanta is in the corner position. They've gotten beaten for whatever reason people want to say, and Matt Ryan has played this team many, many times. If you're predicting this game, and I ask you, is it more important for the Atlanta Falcons to stop Tom Brady, or more important for them to protect Matt Ryan? Which one you say would help them prevail more in this game?
I think it's protect Matt Ryan. I think, this Falcon team generally goes by the way of its offense. That has been a trend pretty much the entire Matt Ryan era. There's been a couple of seasons here or there, a couple of times this year where their defense has sort of, led from the front. But the reality is that, this is not a defense that you can typically rely on to do those things. And, with Tom Brady, I don't have high expectations for, the Falcons' ability to slow down Tom Brady and these weapons, as I mentioned earlier, given some of the issues they're having in the front end as well as the back end of the defense. So I think really for the Falcons, it's going to be heavily dependent on their offense to keep pace and make this game interesting and play well for 4 quarters. And a lot of that's going to depend on the performance of the offensive line, which will, be critical because we saw this Bucs defense really tear them a new one last year in both games, that they were able to sack Matt Ryan 12 times across those 2 games. And you saw Matt Ryan really struggle to move the ball and score points in those games. And fortunately, the Falcons defense was able to make plays in that week 17 game enough to pull it off the win. But we saw in that earlier week 12 game against the Bucs where the Falcons offense struggled and the defense really wasn't getting stops at all. Chris Godwin had a monster game in that game. I think he had 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I feel like the Falcons offense, it's going to be on the Falcons offense to keep pace. And I think a lot of that's going to depend heavily on the offensive line, especially given the expectation that I have right now at this point in the week that Julio Jones is not going to play. And going back to the point I made earlier, where when you look at the team's success throwing the ball with Julio out of the lineup, it hasn't been great this year. And so that even puts more of a burden on the offensive line to keep Matt Ryan upright so that he can find those second and third targets once you get past Calvin Ridley, because that's really been an area where the Falcons have kind of struggled this year because Julio's great, Calvin's great, but who else is there? Russell Gage has made some plays, but he's not been a reliable option. Hayden Hurst has made some plays, but he's not been a reliable option. So it's going to be heavily on the offensive line to keep Matt Ryan upright, as well as create some holes for the run game so that the Falcons can stay balanced and not allow the Shaq Barretts and the Ndamukong Suhs and the Jason Pierre-Pauls of the world to be able to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, which they were able to do at times last season and have been successful doing throughout this season. So I think the burden is on the offensive line to play, really well.
Yeah, now, you're talking about well-balanced teams. There is a possibility this week that Ronald Jones will not be playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which move right in Leonard Fournette. The way the Buccaneers have been playing this year, they ran the ball more last game than they ran all season, 23 times, but they haven't been a very, very run-oriented team. Do you think Ronald Jones not playing in this game has really any effect on this game now that Leonard Fournette and maybe Shady McCoy might be used more?
I think for the points you bring up, like, because you're not necessarily expecting the Bucs to come out there and pound the rock, that it's not going to have as big an impact as maybe some other injuries that they could potentially have, potentially at the wide receiver position along the offensive line, anywhere else on their defense or whatnot. But I do think, at least from the Falcons' perspective, not having to face Ronald Jones, who I think has been one of the better running backs in the league this year, is definitely a benefit for them. They've been inconsistent, particularly as of late when it comes to defending the run. They were struggling quite a bit against the Chargers last week, and that allowed the Chargers to play a pretty conservative game plan, which is a lot of running the football, a lot of short passing, get the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands quickly so that he would avoid being pressured by that blitz that the Falcons like to bring. And it worked, and they were able to play well enough, thanks in part due to 3 turnovers, costly turnovers by the Falcons, to win that football game. So I think not having a Ronald Jones in this lineup makes it easier for the Falcons to defend the Buccaneers offense, but I don't think it's suddenly all of a sudden, that means that the Falcons have a significant advantage. They still, the bulk of their concerns right now from a defensive standpoint is going to be on Tom Brady, on that Bucs passing game. But certainly I feel a lot better given Leonard Fournette's inconsistency that he's not going to necessarily be a dominant force in this game as much as I would be if Ronald Jones was healthy and playing.
Now, before I let you run, Aaron, I know you mentioned protecting Matt Ryan, but if you have to say the keys for this game for each team to prevail, besides protecting the quarterback, give one thing that each team needs to do, and then give you a prediction on what happens this Sunday.
Yeah, if I'm not going to rehash the whole protect the quarterback thing, because I do think that is the biggest key for the Falcons, I would say probably the second biggest thing is, get after Tom Brady in the same way that the Bucs got after Matt Ryan last year. If they can do that, then they can disrupt Tom Brady. He hasn't always been the most consistent quarterback when he's been pressured. He's so smart and he doesn't take sacks and he's all those various things that Tom Brady, that is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. So it's not as an easy task to do. And even if you achieve it, it's not necessarily going to lead to automatic success. But the only way that you're going to slow down Tom Brady is by making him make some rash decisions. Because if he has all the time in the pocket, he's just going to pick apart your defense, especially given all the weapons that the Bucs have at their disposal at the wide receiver position. I think for the Bucs, specifically, I don't know if there's any major challenge that the Falcons are going to really present to them. I think really the Bucs just kind of have to play their game, and as long as they don't play down to the Falcons' level of competition, they should be able to take care of business. But I would say if I was on the Bucs side of things, I would say probably the biggest concern I have is Calvin Ridley, and not letting him have a monster game that would allow the Falcons offense, even sans Julio Jones, with a unhealthy running game as it's been this season, to be able to stay in this game with Tampa Bay because Calvin Ridley goes off for like 180 yards and 2 touchdowns or something like that. So I think if the Bucs secondary can slow down Calvin Ridley, and I know Jamel Dean's been dealing with some injuries. I know Carlton Davis typically is more of a press man corner that can go up against size as opposed to someone as quick and as elusive as Calvin Ridley is. So I think it'll be certainly a challenge for this Bucs secondary. But I think if they can sort of keep Calvin Ridley in check, you don't have to shut him down. If you can just hold him to 6 or 7 catches for 80 yards and keep him out of the end zone, I think that's going to be a winning game plan for the Buccaneers and just prevent him from taking over the game in the same way that, say, Chris Godwin did week 12 last year when he went for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Well, listen, Aaron, I want to thank you so very, very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on Frankly Speaking Sports tonight. Also want to, holidays just around the corner. Wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Appreciate that, Frank or Larry. And same to you.
All right. Good luck to you, buddy.
You too.
All righty. That was Aaron Freeman, the host of the Falcons Podcast. Really, really good to have him on this evening. For those of you fans that I know you've been waiting for, we are in a couple of minutes going to have our picks for the week. We couldn't not have a Pigskin Thursday without our picks. So we're going to start bringing up the picks. Then we're going to go through each game, do our picks, and then we're going to finish up with our show here. Just get a little bit of my Gatorade, give them a plug here. And let's go pick up the games. Let me see real quickly here. If I can get an update on the game going on now. Raiders versus Chargers. Get a quick update. We'll let you know what that score is. Right now, the Chargers are beating the Raiders 17-10 in the third quarter. 17-10, the Chargers are winning. But let's go ahead. Let's raise this a little bit so you guys can hear me. And let's see if I can. There we go. We can get the picks. The first game is tonight. I actually took the Raiders. The Raiders are favored by 3.5 points. I think the Raiders will come back in this game. I think they will win by 3.5 points. We'll see how Derek Carr and Jacobs and everybody does. Then we start Saturday. Remember, folks, we have 2 Saturday games this week. One being Buffalo at Denver. Buffalo looking to clinch that AFC East with an unbelievable quarterback in Josh Allen. They are actually favored by 6.5 points. Buffalo is. Denver is the underdog. They are in Denver, but I think Buffalo will prevail. Then you go ahead and you go to Carolina at Green Bay. Green Bay is favored by 8.5. I don't think that'll be a problem with that team is just so good. I think they'll easily defeat Carolina. Then my upset pick. Washington has been playing really, really well. Seattle's been real inconsistent this year. If you're looking at a game that might go the other way, I know that Washington is underdogs by 6 points. I would take Washington in this game. They are at home. Not that the home field presents anything this year, but I'm picking the Washington football team to beat the Seattle Seahawks as my upset pick of the week. Then I got Chicago beating Minnesota. Minnesota being a 3.5 point favorite. I have Miami taking care of New England. Miami's one of the better teams. Give them a year under their belt this year. They're going to be a team next year. Not that they're not a team this year to watch out for, but definitely a team next year to watch out for. This team is good, and they are 2.5 point favorites versus New England, and they will beat New England. Then you have Jacksonville at Baltimore. I'm taking Baltimore by 13.5 in that game. So let's go ahead and bring this down a minute, folks, and we'll bring up page number 2 here. All righty. So let me go ahead and move that one. And we'll bring this one up for some more games here as we do our predictions. Stay with me, folks. It takes a second to bring everything up here. All right. There we go. And I think I just got to raise it, and we'll give you the rest of our predictions here. All right. There we go. I know one of the games everybody's been waiting for. Let's see if we can bring that one more. There you go. All right. Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Okay. Real simple. I'm picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to defeat the Atlanta Falcons. The Buccaneers are 5.5 point favorites. I don't see any issues with the Buccaneers. I mean, it would take something drastically to go wrong for the Buccaneers to not win this game. Then you got Detroit at Tennessee. Another inconsistent team is the Tennessee Titans, but they do seem to play well towards the end of the year, and I have them defeating Detroit at home. They are 10.5 point favorites. I think they prevail. One of the better games maybe this week, Houston at Indianapolis. Houston, I'm not sure what's going on with them this year. I look for Indy to win that game. Then you got San Francisco at Dallas. Dallas is a 2.5 point underdog. I'm picking San Francisco in that game. Then the Jets versus the Rams. The biggest question here is, do the Rams cover the spread? This is a huge spread, 17 points, but I think the Rams are dominant enough with that McVay offense to go ahead and beat the Jets by 17 points. Then you got Philadelphia at Atlanta. Philadelphia at Arizona. Arizona is a 6.5 point favorite. They should not have any problem versus this terrible Philadelphia team. And then, we talk about a game of the week. What a great, great game at 4:25 on Sunday. You have Kansas City versus New Orleans. New Orleans is a 3.5 point underdog. I'm taking the Chiefs. Now we have 2 other games left. Let us go ahead and, put that up there real quickly for you because we want to make sure we get those in there. Here we go. Let's see if we can raise this up again so you folks can see it. There we go. And if you look at this, you got Cleveland at the New York Giants. Giants are playing well, but they're not going to have Daniel Jones, remember. So that's one of the things you have to remember is that Daniel Jones will not be available in this game. So I'm taking the Cleveland Browns. Just had a really quiet, good year this year. A winning season. I'm picking them to beat them by 3.5. And then the Monday night game is Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Pittsburgh a 12.5-point favorite. Pittsburgh has not played well the last 2 games, with their schedule so messed up with this COVID and everything. Cincinnati without Burrows. I think Pittsburgh comes back on Monday night having something to prove and show the nation that they're still the team in the AFC to beat. They'll win by 12.5 points. So that's my picks. Let me go ahead and get that back down to normal. There we go. So, there's our picks for week 15. Folks, 3 games left on the season. That's what it is. It's a 3-game season. This is the best part of the year. Who's going to make the playoffs? Now, for your Buccaneers, stop worrying about what they have to do to make the playoffs. What they got to do is they got to win. That's what they got to do. Everybody tries to come up with these different scenarios. Well, if the Bucs win and Minnesota and Chicago tie this week, then the Bucs are in the playoffs. You know what? Why can't we just say if the Bucs keep winning, they're in the playoffs? Because you know what? That's the way it is. The Bucs win, they're in. They lose, they're not in. And that's the way you got to treat it. As long as you keep winning, the numbers and the playoffs take care of itself. The one thing you want to see your Tampa Bay Buccaneers do in the next 3 games, you got a home and away series against Atlanta this week and the last week of the season. And then, of course, you play Detroit. You want to see this offense gelling. This is the time now, okay? You're going to make the playoffs. This is the time where you want to dot the I's. You want to cross the T's. This is where your offense needs to get in sync. This is where Tom Brady and all his receivers need to be on the same page. This is where we have to stop getting, stupid penalties like our defense is getting, jumping off sides when it's 3rd and 5, and giving the other team an extra set of downs to try to complete, scoring for a touchdown. Those are things we're going to need to stop doing. That is stupid mental mistakes. And we got to win the turnover battle. We're doing a much better job not turning the ball over. Now we got to make sure on the defensive side, we're putting the pressure on the quarterbacks, force Brian into getting some interceptions. My 3 keys for this game is pressure and Matt Ryan. I think that goes without saying. When you look at Barrett and you look at Pierre-Paul having 5 sacks, I think in the last 2 years as a combo. Listen to this, folks. Since 2019, beginning of 2019, these guys combined have 45.5 sacks between them. That's incredible. And that's what you're going to need balance of year in the playoffs to allow yourself to go further. The other thing is, and it's something we haven't done well this year, I like to see a sustained, well-balanced drive. Now, that drive at the beginning of the second half only lasted a little shy of 5 minutes, but what I liked about it was we were passing the ball, we were running the ball, we were confusing the defense. They didn't know what was coming at them, and that's what you have to do in football. You have to disguise it. And that's what I was talking about earlier in the show, is if every time Fournette's in there running the ball and every time McCoy is in this weekend they're passing the ball, you're not disguising anything. Once in a while, throw a 2-set back in there so they don't know what the heck's going on. Once in a while, let McCoy run with the ball. You saw what happened against the Vikings. He picked up some yardage, some damn good yardage versus them. You got to mix it up. You got to sustain drives. And then once you get these leads, you got to know how to manage the clock. If somebody asks me what's the weakest part of Coach Arians' coaching is, I would say clock management. I really don't think, and I could be wrong, okay? But in the small amount of cases where I had to see him manage the clocks, he's made some mistakes. And that's one of the things that I have to criticize. I love Coach Arians. I love what he's doing here. But that's one of the things that I would have to criticize him on when it comes to clock management. We got to sustain these drives. We got to run the ball. The key to us winning is running. Because if you're running effectively, it opens up the passing game and it allows guys to get free deep. And then the game is the game that Bruce Arians' offense is supposed to present. By running the ball, the defense is playing now on their front feet instead of their back feet. And when they're doing that, guys like Antonio Brown, guys like Scotty Miller, guys like Godwin, guys like Evans can make that first move, beat the defender, go deep. And that's what Bruce Arians' offense is all about. And it's a beautiful thing when it is working. It's an artistry. It really is. It's incredible when it works. And the other thing I'd like to see is let's score first. You know, nothing says in the Bucs bylaws that we have to allow the other team to score first. Let's come down. Let's score. Let's take a lead in the first quarter for once and, you know, let it pave the rest of the way for us in this game. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to thank Aaron Freeman, host of Locked on Falcons Podcast, for joining us this evening. What an incredible, incredible guest he was. Very nice of him to join us, give us some feedback on the Atlanta Falcons and what we're looking at, what we're meeting up with this Sunday. You know, as far as telecast next week, we'll keep you posted. But as of now, we are planning to definitely do a show. Monday will be Frankly Speaking Sports starting at 9 p.m. We will have our Bullseye show, USF Bullseye show on our USF platform on Tuesday beginning at 9 p.m. And then we'll probably do a show Wednesday night at 9 p.m. as well. For all of you folks out there, have a great, great weekend. Let's root for USF. Let's root for the Bucs. A lot of things starting to happen here in Tampa Bay. Have a great weekend.